Now, I like a good museum, right?
Of course.
There's the Brooklyn one, or the Met, or even the MoMA.
The MoMA, yeah.
You know someone there. Well, now you can go to all those museums and look at displays, but you can't smell them. They certainly don't want you tasting them. But you can at MoFad. That would be the Museum of Food and Drink, which has a culinary board and trustees like Mario Batali, Crocs, and Questlove.
Questlove, gotta love him. Now, if your mouth is watering to know more, we have just the person for you. Peter Kim is MoFad's executive director, and he joins us now. Peter, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the gin. Of course. I know that's what you guys have in the cups now. So
listen, if you got here today, and we'd like to thank all of our guests, no one canceled on us. This is a real New Yorker here. He made it.
Brian and I are fascinated by this. Why a museum of food and drink?
Well, I guess why not, right? I mean, I think it's kind of crazy when you think about the fact that we have museums for the moving image, we have museums for art, science, sex, skyscrapers. But what is more central to human culture than food, right? I mean, I think people express their cultural identities through food. Food has driven much of human history, and it's linked to the environment. It's linked to our health. It's linked to the economy. It's incredibly important. So
who are the people coming through? Are they all...
foodies.
Foodies? Do people get yearly memberships and try to, come as often as they can?
Well, we only really want to draw people who eat. So, yeah. No, I mean, it's really. I think we want to be a welcoming museum for everybody because this is the kind of museum where you go to it and it has immediate relevance to your daily life. So you're learning about things that you encounter every day because everybody is eating all the time, right? And so for us, we want to be able to reach kids, families, anybody really, not just, and specifically not just foodies, because that's not really where we're trying to.
What is a foodie anyway? Is that a thing? Is that like what binge watch just got in the dictionary? Like, is foodie a thing?
Yeah, personally, I don't really like using that word. I think I'd prefer to use a word like food enthusiast. But foodie seems to either be sort of an insult or a sort of elitist thing, depending on which perspective you're taking it from. And for us, it's really not about looking at food like that. I mean, I think everybody should care about food. It's something that's important to all of us.
I bet you've been called a foodie. How do you give up a law career to get into a museum of food and drink, Peter?
We have a crack research team.
There's a long answer to that, but I mean, in short, I've been a longstanding food history and science nerd. I've always been fascinated by what is, you look at a loaf of bread, and think about all of the magic that goes into making that, or you look at, really any aspect of what we eat, and just trying to understand the stories. I also have had the fortune of being able to live in a lot of different places around the world, and seeing how food can serve as a bridge between cultures. And so, all this kind of came together. I worked in education, doing arts education, and in hunger and poverty policy advocacy, and so. While I was working as an attorney, I met this guy, Dave Arnold, who is something of a food sort of mad scientist in the food world. Yeah. And he had this idea of just sort of this notion of the fact that there should be a food museum like this in New York City. Wow. And so, we started talking, and we had kind of a mind meld. And then a year later, I decided I had to quit my job and really make this happen.
So you guys have a brick and mortar now, so you're like a legit institution, but a lot of people may have been first introduced to you by this crazy van that was driving around blowing up cereal and stuff.
Yeah, so, getting a museum off the ground from scratch, especially when you don't have a wealthy donor or a collection or a building that's handed to you, it's not easy, right? And so we had to start somewhere. And so we had to be a mobile museum first. And we started with this crazy object.
We're looking at it.
Okay,
what the hell are we looking at there? There's blowing up stuff.
That's a cereal puffing gun.
Yes.
Duh. So that's how cereal was made for decades. If you go down the cereal aisle, there's basically 4 kinds of cereal. Yeah. You have chunks, you have flakes, you have shreds.
What's a grape nut?
So a grape nut would be a chunk.
Okay.
Yeah, and then a flake would be like corn flakes, wheat flakes. Shred would be like shredded wheat. But everything else and most cereals are puffs.
Corn puffs.
Yeah, corn puffs, Kix, Trix, Cocoa Puffs,
Cheerios?
Cheerios,
Cap'n
yeah.
Crunch?
Cap'n Crunch is, yes, it's a puff.
Okay.
Yeah. And so all these cereals originally were made in puffing guns. And this is a technology that was actually invented in the Bronx by a guy at the Bronx.
Mr. Kellogg's?
The Botanical Gardens.
No.
Oh, yeah, no.
Cheerio.
Well, there's a crazy story behind Kellogg.
I want you to stay here all
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
So
seriously.
the thing people don't know is that cereal started as a religious diet food.
I remember that.
Yeah.
It still is for me. Religious.
Well, let me tell you more about it, and you can tell me whether you still agree with that. It was believed that eating cereal would sort of purify your soul and sort of erase the sort of, let's say, carnal impulses.
We're
Check.
still on it.
So
Check.
Still on, that's why you eat it on Saturday morning.
yeah, exactly.
Puritanical even.
But yeah, so the puffing gun was introduced
In the
and
Bronx.
Well, so the technology was discovered by the principle of puffing was discovered in the Bronx
Yeah.
at the Botanical Gardens.
To like propagate seeds? Why did they do that?
Well, there's a guy who is I'm trying to give this as quickly as
Sorry
possible.
for taking us down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, no, there's a guy who was trying to test whether dried grains had moisture, and so
Okay.
he sealed the grains in a sealed container and heated them up to see if condensation would form on the
Like
inside.
popcorn
Yeah,
happens.
exactly.
Makes sense.
Except when he broke the container, the rice would go pew, shooting out, and it would puff.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Oh my God, this is
I have to
crazy."
taste this.
Yeah, and so. Fast forward, Quaker buys the patent to this technology,
Right.
and they wheel out at the St. Louis World's Fair in 1906. 1904.
Yeah.
These military cannons that they've reconfigured as puffing guns, and they fire puffed rice into these
Just
cages.
all over the crowd.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I want one in my apartment.
Yeah,
Let's ask you something about the museum because they're wrapping us.
Yeah.
The new exhibit, Chow.
Yep.
It's all about our obsession with our favorite takeout.
Yes. So if you go anywhere in the country, you'll find Chinese American restaurants.
In that box.
Yeah. In fact, there are over 3 times more Chinese American restaurants than there are McDonald's.
Thank
What?
God.
Yeah.
You're blowing my mind. I bet you don't eat McDonald's at your museum, but go on, please.
And so, the thing is, what people don't realize is that there is a nearly 170-year history behind these restaurants, and it actually dates back to the original Chinese immigration for the gold rush, then the railroad, and then a time at which the U.S. actually tried to kick out the Chinese. And so, we in 1882 enacted this law called the Chinese Exclusion Act. Which was the first time the U.S. tried to exclude
Singled
immigration on the basis of ethnicity.
Right.
And that created a really difficult set of conditions for the Chinese who were left in the U.S.
Right.
And they had to open their own businesses because nobody would hire them. There was a lot of violence against the Chinese.
Yeah.
And their
started with the
population dwindled, so they had to start cooking, making food
Yeah.
and they had to serve their food to non-Chinese diners.
Yeah.
And so that was a sort of the beginning of how you get this cuisine that really was invented by Chinese immigrants,
Right.
but has nothing to do, or is very different from food you'd find in China. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
It's like jazz. It's the jazz of food. This
Yeah.
Chinese
It's
amazing.
thing.
Yeah, and I think there's something really poignant about the fact that, we really at first told the Chinese immigrants,
from
look,
exclusion.
you don't belong here,
Right.
right? You're not American.
Yeah.
And then, flash forward to today,
Yeah.
and I think everybody, who doesn't love General's chicken, right? I mean,
Everyone.
egg rolls.
I have some under the table right here.
So
I have some in the mug with mine.
we're completely out of time right now, but tell us how to get to the museum MoFad.
Yeah, so go to mofad.org, and we're located in Williamsburg, Greenpoint, on the south side of McCarran Park, and we're open to the public Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
Love to have you guys come through. We do tastings. We have a fortune cookie machine. You can eat as many fortune cookies as you
Watch
want,
out.
fresh off the conveyor belt.
Peter
Watch
Kim,
out.
Executive Director of the Museum of Food and Drink, thank you very much for being here. We're coming to the museum.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Fortune cookie.